I think you can start.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Deji. So good evening, everyone. Tonight we are going to look at weight in Selenium C#.
Can you put it in presentation mode?
Oh,
please?
yes, sorry. Yeah.
In Slasher.
Yeah, I hope this is all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so we are going to look at weight commands in Selenium C#. So first of all, we are going to look at what is weight, the type of weight we have, and how we can use them in our code. And we'll look at the theoretical part of it, and we'll also go into the practical part of it. So first of all, weight, we're gonna look at Selenium. Selenium is a widely used open framework for automated testing. So which ensures that web applications run properly across all browsers and operating systems. And as a result of that, Selenium has become very popular in the testing industry. So to test our web applications better and resolve all changes we face, it is important to learn certain Selenium best practices and while writing our test code. So one of the most important factors in Selenium C# is the ability to use wait commands to reduce the flakiness of tests. I mean, it's one of the issues we face most of the time. So if you are able to know how to use our weights, it's gonna help a lot. So let's see how wait commands in Selenium C# help us resolve time lag issues in our applications. So first of all, we'll look at wait. What is wait command? So in Selenium, anyway, if anyone has a question, they can pop it in the chat, or I don't know if they can ask their questions. But yeah, Mr. Deji and Abimbola is here. So what is wait commands? In Selenium, wait commands are used to pause the execution of the test script for a specified amount of time or until certain conditions are met. So when we automate a web application using Selenium, sometimes we need to wait for certain elements or pages to load before performing any actions on them. And if we do not wait for these elements to load properly, the script may fail due to synchronization issues or elements not found errors. And this is one of the issues we face a lot, because most of the time in the group chat, people post, I ran my code, yesterday it was running and today it's failing. And I think this is most of the time is due to these issues. So wait commands are essential in Selenium automation to ensure that the script runs smoothly without any errors due to synchronization issues or element not found. Because most of the time when our web applications are being built or in the coding process, there's this thing called, is it Ajax, which is basically JavaScript and the XML they use. And sometimes with this, because they use this, there are sometimes it takes time for the code to load. It's dynamic, so it changes sometimes. So now let's look at the types of wait commands we have. We have three main commands, which is the implicit wait command, we have the explicit wait command, and we have the fluent wait command. I brought the thread.sleep here because most of us use it in our code. So it will be best if we talk about it, if we talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of each and every one of these. So first of all, we'll start with thread.sleep. So what is thread.sleep? This is the value, this is the code for thread.sleep. So we have it here, thread.sleep, and you put the value. Most of the time, thread.sleep runs in milliseconds. So if for instance, you want to run your code with thread.sleep, if you want to run it for 1 second, you have to put 1000 because it runs in milliseconds. So what is thread.sleep? Thread.sleep is a method that causes the current thread to pause for a specific period of time in milliseconds. It can be used to introduce a delay in a program to simulate the time taken by a user to perform an action. So to wait for a resource to become available or to implement a simple form of polling. So for example, if you want to wait for 1 second before performing the next action in your program. So for instance, if you are navigating to your page and your page is taking long to open, you can use thread.sleep. So thread.sleep method is called with an argument of 1,000. Like I said earlier, thread.sleep runs in milliseconds. So, and I think every 1,000 milliseconds make 1 second. So yeah, which means that the current thread will sleep for milliseconds or 1 second, just like I explained earlier. And it is important to note that using thread.sleep is not always a best approach for waiting in C# programs. Instead, it's recommended to use asynchronous programs techniques such as await keyword and tags.delay to avoid blocking the calling thread and improve the overall performance of the program. So additionally, using thread.sleep in user interface can result in a non-responsive UI and should be avoided. So let's look at some advantages of thread.sleep, and we'll also look at the disadvantage. So what are some of the advantages of thread.sleep? So it has control flow. What do I mean by control flow? So thread.sleep allows you to the execution of a thread for a certain period of time. And this can be useful in controlling the flow of your program and making it wait until certain conditions are met. We also have resource management. Thread.sleep can be used to improve resource management by temporarily suspending the execution of a thread when it is not needed, allowing other threads to use system resource instead. We also have the time-based operations, which is one of the advantages. So thread.sleep can be used to perform time-based operations such as periodic task execution or timing out a long-running operation. We also have one advantage, which is the simple implementation. With the thread.sleep method, it is easy to use and can be implemented with just a few lines of code. I mean, it's pretty much simple to use. You just type thread.sleep and you put in the time frame or the value you want. So for synchronization, thread.sleep can be used in conjunction with synchronization techniques to ensure that threads execute in a specific order. One of the advantages is also testing. So thread.sleep can be useful in testing scenarios to stimulate delays and verify that your code behaves correctly in those situations. Also, here are some of the advantages of thread.sleep. Let's also look at the disadvantages of thread.sleep. So the first one we have here is incorrect timing. Thread.sleep cannot guarantee precise timing as it depends on the system, clock, and the operating system scheduling algorithm. Therefore, the actual duration of the sleep may vary from the specified duration, which can lead to problems in real-time applications. So in as much as we use it most often and it's easy to use, it's got some disadvantages, and this is one of the disadvantages. Let's look at another disadvantage: wasted CPU time. So when a thread is sleeping, it is not doing any useful work, but it still consumes CPU resource. And this can lead to inefficient use of system resource and reduce performance of the overall system. We have another disadvantage, which is unresponsive threads. So if a thread is sleeping for too long, it can become unresponsive and fail to respond to interact or other events. And this can result in a deadlock or other synchronization problems. We also have one disadvantage, which is poor code readability. So overuse of thread.sleep can make the code hard to read and maintain, as it can lead to complex control flow and timing related bugs. And we have one last disadvantage here, which is alternative solutions. So in many cases, there are better alternatives to using thread or sleep, such as using wait notify timers or event-driven programming. This solution can provide more precise timing and avoid the problems associated with thread or sleep. So here are some of the disadvantages of thread or sleep. So we'll move on to, okay, so here is an example of thread or sleep and how it is used in a code. So here, I want to navigate to Prep Major, but before I navigate to Prep Major, I want the website to sleep or wait for 5 seconds before it closes, before the driver quits it. So here's an example of how it looks in our code. We will later on go into the practical aspect of it to see how it works. So we have implicit wait command. So here we have the code for implicit wait command, which is driver.manage.timeout implicit wait is equal to time span for seconds. Then you put your value. So with thread.sleep, it runs in milliseconds, but with implicit wait, it runs in seconds. So instead of you to put a value of maybe 5,000, which is 5,000 milliseconds, with implicit wait, you put a value of just 5 because it runs in seconds. So let's see what implicit wait command is. So with implicit wait command, is a type of synchronization technique in automated testing that allows the test script to wait for a certain amount of time before throwing an exception if an element is not immediately available. In other words, an implicit wait tells the testing framework to wait for a certain amount of time before attempting to locate an element on the web page. If the element is located within the specific wait time.
Oh, hold on, Rexford, sorry.
Yeah.
Before we continue, has anyone got any question about that thread or sleep, please? Should we just assume that everyone kind of understood? Cool, thank you. Yeah, please continue.
Okay, so yeah, so in other words, an implicit wait tells the testing framework to wait for a certain amount of time before attempting to locate an element on the web page. If the element located within the specific wait time, the test script continues to execute. If the element is not located within the wait time, the test script throws an exception. So with the implicit wait time is applied globally to all elements in the test script, and it is set once at the beginning of the script. So the wait time is a predefined value and is typically set in seconds. Implicit wait is useful for handling synchronization issues in automation testing, where the timing of interactions with web element is critical. It helps to ensure that the test script waits long enough for an element to become available without having to manually add wait statement to the code. So with so the difference between, I mean, it's sort of someone will ask, what is the difference between implicit wait and thread.sleep? So with thread.sleep, you add your code, your whole code, or what you are executing to wait for if, for instance, you give a value of 5,000, which is 5 seconds, your code is going to wait for the whole 5 seconds before it moves to the next code. But with implicit wait, when you put in your value, for instance, 5 seconds, when the driver identifies the web element on the page, is going to close. It won't wait for the whole 5 seconds you have put in the value to run the code. So that's what makes the difference. So for instance, if within this 5 seconds period, the driver doesn't locate your element, it's going to throw an exception. But if it locates the element before the 5 seconds, it's just going to close the code and it will like move on to whatever you want to do. So we can also look at some advantages of implicit wait, and we'll also look at some disadvantages. So I don't know if anyone has a question on the implicit wait.
Maybe your next class will be in type of exceptions.
I just wanted the clarification. Okay,
Right.
sorry, Babibala, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead with the question.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you only got to put this one once, the implicit wait just once. You know how we normally will put thread dot sleep at every point that it is needed, before every code that it is needed. So you're saying that we only got to call this once, and it will automatically be used for the entire code running. Is that what that means, or I'm not understanding you?
Okay, so with, yeah, just like you said, with the thread.sleep, you have to put it at for every method, maybe you have to put it in all your methods, which for instance, if you are running your test, your code, and you have maybe 15 lines of code, and in these 50 lines of code, or maybe you have in the 10 lines of code, you have thread.sleep in there. So each of these 10 lines of code will take 5 seconds to execute. It will take 5 seconds each. So if you 5 times 10, which will give you 50, so which is 50 seconds, that's the amount of time it's gonna take to execute. But with the implicit wait, if you have the implicit wait in your code and you run your code, for instance, if you put a value of 5 seconds, if the web element locates if your driver locates the web element within this 5 seconds, so for instance, if the driver locates it within 2 seconds or even 1 second, it's just going to run your code, and if you accept it, it's going to move on to the next code. I don't know if that answers your question.
So it's not that you have to call it at every point that you need it.
No, you don't call it at every point that you need it.
Yeah, you don't have to call it. So yeah, once you put it at the beginning of your code, even on the before scenario, anywhere you put it, as long as it sees it, and it's kind of global. You're actually saying from now, anywhere you see this particular method, right, wait for this particular time anyway. Or when you basically anytime you are looking for an element on the web page, wait for this time. And once you wait for that time, right, and the driver did not see it, it threw an exception, but it doesn't have to wait for that particular time to finish. I think Rashford also mentioned that it will wait, but once the element is found, it will continue, right? Which is different from the thread.sleep, which means like even if the element is already found, you still have to wait anyway for that time that you're given.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to raise my hand. Yeah, it's just like Mr. Deji said that it's global when it's compared to explicit and thread.sleep. And when you talk about implicit, actually, you're talking about all the things you're going to run. It's how it works is that when it comes to, like as Rashford said initially, 5 seconds, that is going to 5 seconds of 500 because it goes in seconds or a millimeter or something. So how it works is that if you do your testing, if you're doing your testing, it works that if it comes to a particular test, it's going to take like 5 seconds. And if there is nothing to wait for that side, it's going to throw, and it will just like there will be nothing to show. It will just move on to the next one. But the key thing that is differentiates it from thread.sleep is that thread.sleep is for a particular feature that you're going to run, just like explicit. You're going to declare it there. But implicit, you declare it in something like a global, something like hooks. That is the place you're supposed to declare it so that it will touch every part of the elements that you located or stuff like that. So I think that what differentiates, kind of the main thing that differentiates it from a thread.sleep and explicit, because explicit, if like take for instance that implicit has to go for 5 seconds for every one of them, but explicit might be like 8 seconds, because if it comes there and what is supposed to wait for is more than 5 seconds, it's going to throw something that so it didn't get it. And you're now declaring your explicit in that particular side will make that element to be located before it wait for that place for the elements to be located before it moves to another step.
Yeah, just to add to it as well, you can have it in any class. Let's say, for example, you want to have a unique customized locator. Let's say you want in your framework, like you want to use only CSS, or you want to use just XPath. So if you create a class for it, you can have implicit weight there and put everything there. It's just, you can also have it in a class, not basically it has to be in the hook class. You can have it anywhere, any particular class that you want to use, or if you want to customize your locator to say that in this framework, we will be using CSS, because sometimes at work, you might find out that maybe you are using a unique ID to do your testing, or maybe your framework is kind of built in a way that you can only use CSS or you can only use XPath. So you can have a class for it and put everything there. But that doesn't mean that you cannot still use thread.sleep, even if you have implicit. And you can still use, because there might be in a way that the waiting time for that particular element to be found is kind of taking too long. Then you can use thread.sleep, even though you already have this global implicit in a class. It doesn't mean that you cannot still use it, so that we don't get it confused, like, oh, when we already have it, so it means that automatically our test should be passing. But if you know that that locator, like in the case of an iframe, or is the element is inside a container, or something that has to do with the weight, so you still need to put thread.sleep, or if there's a way that you can write your explicit in that particular page object, of course, it will still work for you. That's just my own contribution.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, quick question. So that means we can use both, like thread.sleep and implicit at the same time?
Not at the same time, but you
As
already
in one scenario, or in one features?
No. You won't say that in one scenario, because implicit is global. Whether you're running one feature or not, is already there. It's just like you already have this one to be there in your framework to say that anytime you run your element, it will work for each of your elements. It is there sitting down to say that use me whenever you want to use me. But the thread.sleep is for that particular step that is kind of failing, that you know that, okay, and most of the time you use this case, it depends on the environment, because most of the time when the developer develops some environment, or there is a particular thing going on in that environment, that the loading time take longer. Because sometimes when you want to navigate from one page to the other, the loading, or the time it takes to load, it takes longer, of course. Then you know that, okay, let me, for this particular step, I can quickly put something there to say that, okay, you want to increase the time, because you cannot keep going to the implicit and keep giving it more seconds, or because at my own work, we already have it declared in a class, we put 10 seconds, of course, but we still use thread.sleep when we know that the loading time for this is more than 10 seconds. We need more because of the way that the environment is. So we still use it on that particular element that we want it to wait for. So I think it has to do with the load.
Yeah, it has to do with the
Yeah.
load. And again, the thread.sleep you're talking of, the person that just said something, is that's the way you can also use the explicit. You know, that would be
explicit,
the same
yeah.
thing. They are kind of the same thing, but you know that the thread.sleep is not really allowed, kind of. Yeah, but you know, is it that you use the thread.sleep if you really want, or explicit? But implicit is a kind of global, as they said before.
I wouldn't say thread.sleep is not allowed, because in my own pipeline at work, it kind of accepts thread.sleep to say that, because sometimes when you run the pipeline is a different, because the pipeline doesn't use Selenium, and there's a way it runs in the pipeline, and it's not controlled by Selenium, and so we kind of use thread.sleep, and if we know that this particular, because we have a load issue, or this particular element is going to be failing in the pipeline, so we use thread.sleep. But I wouldn't say, but of course, strategy can say, no, I'm wrong. But I wouldn't say that thread.sleep is not that allowed to say, but I will still say that, yeah, maybe too much of it is not okay in a framework, but I want to defend it at interview. Yeah, to say that, yes, this is the reason why I'm using it.
Yeah, it's just like what you said, that Bimbola. It's not that people don't usually use it, but it's what I mean is that it's not kind of a standard thing that people use in the office, but so because it's something that is easy to use, that it doesn't require enough formula for you to write it down or that, and it works because of that. Yeah, people really make use of it in the offices. That's how it goes.
We have to move on anyway. So one thing I want to say quickly, no to thread.sleep if you can. You only use it when you've tried every method and nothing is working. And I can tell you, in most instances, explicit or Flint weight will work, right? So I can tell you so, right? So we need to move on that. No, a lot of people are raising their hands, but if you can, the only time I can recommend that you use thread.sleep is when you are debugging, right? When I want to debug, I want to wait for this, right? Or when you become like advanced, and they are using your code as a demo, right? Because that also happens as well. So that they want to use your code like a demo, then you can put thread.sleep in there to say, oh, I want the code to wait for 5 minutes so that the person can actually see what is happening. So that's one. But I would say no to thread.sleep, and unless you couldn't find a better way to do it using Flint weight, actually, which I think Resford is going to go through right now. Quickly, Samson, any question quickly?
Yes, I was going to
Okay.
to use the implicit weight or the explicit weight. Do you need any package for it?
Sorry?
I said, do you need any Nugget package to use the implicit weight or the explicit weight?
All right, good question. Rexford, that question is for you.
Yes, so you need to install, you have packages you have to install, and one of the packages you need to install is Selenium support. You also need to install this other package, which is Selenium dot. There are packages you have to install, and we're gonna go into that when we get to the practical aspect of it.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
one is .NET Selenium Extras. Yeah, you have to install that package as well.
All right, cool. Chika?
Yeah, so I have
I said Chika.
Oh, sorry, it's Anne. Sorry.
You guys will not stop to confuse me, right?
I'm sorry, apologies. I will join on my
You need to put
own.
Annie and Chika because it's Zoom, so you can rename it to Annie
Annie,
and Chika.
Annie is claiming they are one.
Okay, I will. Yeah, sorry about that, about the
Okay.
confusion.
What
So
was the
yeah,
question?
I have one is a comment. Yeah, I don't know if Rashford will cover that. It's usually a question in the interview, which error message is being thrown up when you are using implicit weight. So yeah, I've had a couple of that in the interview. So it's one to take note of. And my second question is, no, my first question is which, because Abimbola did make a valid point. Sometimes when you are using certain weights and you're running your test in a pipeline, it doesn't work. So the question is which is the best for running your automation test on your pipeline. And then lastly, I've read implicit weights a couple of times, and I've not come across where it was written that, yeah, once your test executes, it goes on to the next step without waiting for that time to elapse. So I think the one that has said that is the fluent weight. Yeah, so I would need a bit of clarification on that.
No, it doesn't wait, actually. I don't think it does wait. Yeah. So once your element is found, right, it continues.
So,
Yeah.
does he wait for that 5 seconds, or as soon as he just locate it, it runs and then go to the next one?
Yeah, as soon
Because
as
I've not seen where it was written.
Yeah, as soon as he found it, he continues. It doesn't wait for the whole time.
Okay, so the weight that is used is best used for pipeline.
No, because sometimes it doesn't work because it's global, right? It doesn't work that much. That's where, in most cases, that's where people use trade or sleep, because trade or sleep, you put it in a particular location and you wait on that particular location. For explicit one, right, you will say, wait for this particular element for me, and you put it at that particular element, and you know that that element will wait, right? So, and for me, that is the best process, actually, because you are kind of being explicit and you know the element you are waiting for, and you know the time you should wait for. But of course, it doesn't wait for the whole time as well. Do you get it now? Unlike,
yeah, because the pipeline is more of a tricky one, because when you're running it on that pipeline, it tends to run quicker than when you're running it on your local with using Selenium. So that was why I was so curious to know which of the weights that
Exactly.
is much better.
That's what I also find out too. That the best. Maybe it's not, because I'm also still learning. In the pipeline, because of the pipeline, we have to use thread to sleep. I don't know. It might be maybe we need to improve our code. I don't know, but for the pipeline reasons, thread to sleep. Because most of the time it kind of waits, and once it can't find it, it just stays there, instead of the pipeline to run for like maybe 1 minute, it can take 10 minutes to run.
All right. Okay, guys. So I think we are going to technical on this thing. So talking about pipeline, some people already got confused now. So, but I want everyone to understand, there's implicit weight, there's explicit weight, and this is what it's used for. Okay. Thanks for all these numerous wonderful contributions as well. So Olamide, lastly, Olamide.
Thank you. Thank you. So just want you to kindly clarify the point that said implicit weight is global. Then two, it also made the point that implicit weight can be used once. Will it be, now question now, will it now be in the hook folder or something? And why is it once? So what it meant by it can be used just once and it covers for the particular feature.
Okay, Rashford.
Yeah, so just like Jose Well, so I mean, with thread.sleep, you will have to put it in the method or your code wherever you want it to execute. But with implicit wait, it is global, like Abimbola said, it's global. So once you have it in your test, you don't have to repeat it all over. You don't have to repeat it in every step or every code you want to execute.
Okay.
Where will it now be?
Can you show an example?
Where will it be? Okay.
You have an example. Yeah.
Okay, so I have it here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. Thank you. So maybe this will explain Olamide's question. Yeah.
Yes. So Olamide, once you have it, so this is a basic code, which is just to navigate on Prep Major website and to click on is to click on login button. Yeah. So with this, once you have it here, you have the driver. This is the code for implicit wait, which is driver.manage timeout implicit wait. So with here, the value, which is the time span, I've put 10 seconds, which means that when it navigates to Prep Major website, it should wait for 10 seconds before it should click on this login button. And if the web driver finds the element, even in when they navigate and they find it between 1 or 2 seconds, it's just gonna move on to this next code, which is to click on it, which is to click on the login button. So once you have it here, it's global. You don't need to put it in every part of your code, unlike the thread.sleep.
Okay, do you get that? Yeah, I think Olamide, your own question also is right. So if you put it in your hook file, right, it will still work. As long as that particular line is executed anywhere. For instance, you might not want to put in your hook file if you know that you don't need it until a particular section, right? Maybe you've already said click here, everything is fine, but you now need the implicit wait maybe later in your session, right? Maybe on the then clause. Do you get it now? You can put it in that step definition, which means that from there, right, anywhere this is going to be implemented, anytime that an element is waiting, right, it's going to wait for 10 seconds and it's going to kind of, yeah. If it doesn't say that element, then you would try an exception. So that's what it means. So wherever you put it is fine. But once it's been executed, it becomes global.
Okay. So anytime it finds any element, every time you are working on any element and it's found in our hook, it will always follow the implicit wait from the hook folder.
Right. So, but you know that you might not see the effect, right? Because once it sees the element, right, within that time, it's going to continue. It's not going to wait for the time you specified, right? So, but if it sees it before the time, it will continue anyway.
And that applies to all elements.
Yes, that's right.
All.
Because if you go back, Resford, right? If you go back to that code, yeah, you can see that code is not saying which element. On line 29. Yeah, it doesn't say which element, so it applies to every element on the. So that's why explicit is better, because yeah, that one we say wait for this element for this particular time anyway. Yeah, but all of them we have their own advantages and disadvantages. With this one, if it works globally. Do you get it now? You don't have to put it anywhere again. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I go on?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. So I think with Annie's question, Annie's first question. So when I think the error it shows is web driver timeout exception. So just to let you know, I think that was one of the questions Annie asked. What error does it show when it doesn't get the code?
Sorry, can I ask my question?
Yeah, yes, please, you can go ahead.
From the code, is it compulsory to put the weight code there? Is it compulsory?
What do you mean by is it compulsory? Do you mean
Yeah,
is
on
it?
line 29.
No,
It's always necessary to put it.
no.
Okay, why do we do it then?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where you want to put it. But once you have it in your code, because it's global, once you have it in your code,
Yeah, I
it's going
understand.
to apply to all your code or what you have in your code.
Because the other one, when you put it, you want to see something, you don't want it to run too fast, then you want to slow it down. So I can understand, but this one, so I'm just trying to understand why we need it in the code. Because for me, it's like it can slow down the whole process overall.
Yes. So just unlike you have, with the thread.sleep, when
Yeah.
you, for instance, if we have, okay, let's go back to the thread.sleep. So here on line 25, we have thread.sleep.
Yeah,
So
this one, I understand that this one, yes. Or the other one.
Sorry.
Yeah, so, okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, just on implicit is good. Like now, if you have a network issue, as in your network is very slow, it will help you. Implicit is the best to use for it. And the reason why I said that it's good to declare your hooks is because hooks has a pattern whereby you put your Chrome, you put your maximize your screen and everything. So it's kind of, to me, for me, I would say that if I'm putting it, I like putting it in hooks because it's so clear that you put everything that you're looking for, like your close, your quit and everything, inside the hook. And again, hook is global too, unlike other ones that you need to declare and all that. So hooks always goes in every part of the pages you're working on. So I think for me, I would say it's best for me to put it in your hooks. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelly. So if we don't have any question, we can move on. So here are some of the advantages of implicit wait. So the simplicity of it, implicit waits are very easy to set up as they only require a single command at the beginning of the test script. The global application. So implicit waits are applied to all elements in the test script, which can be very useful when testing a large web applications that contains many dynamic elements. Increase stability. So implicit wait helps to make your test script more stable by preventing the WebDriver from throwing exceptions when an element is not immediately available. Reduce code complexity. By using implicit wait, you can reduce the amount of code needed to handle timing issues in your test script, which can make them easier to read and maintain. Improve test execution speed. So implicit waits can help to speed up the execution of your test script by preventing unnecessary delays caused by the WebDriver waiting for elements that are already available. So here are some of the advantages of implicit wait. Let's also look at the disadvantages. So with the disadvantage, increased execution time. So if the implicit wait time is set to be too long, it can increase the overall execution time of the test script, which can be inefficient and slow down the testing process. I think some of you were mentioning this earlier. So unpredictable wait times. Implicit waits are not very precise, and the wait time may be longer or shorter than expected, which can result in unpredictable text execution times. One also of the disadvantages is difficult in debugging. So when using implicit wait, it can be challenging to pinpoint the exact cause of a synchronization issue because the wait time is not explicitly defined in the code. So I think Abimbola mentioned, or is it Deji mentioned, that when debugging, it's good to use thread.sleep. Also, rates of false positives. So an implicit wait can sometimes cause a test to pass even if the expected behavior is not actually occurring. For example, if the test script is waiting for an element to become visible, but the element is present but not visible due to a coding error, the test may pass even though there is an issue. And one last, they have many disadvantages, but one last one we have here is limited flexibility. Implicit weights are applied globally to all elements, which can limit the flexibility of the testing framework to handle synchronization issues on a case-by-case basis. So we'll move on to, as earlier, here's how it's used in our code. We'll move on to explicit weight command. So with the explicit weight command, we have, here's the code for the explicit weight command, which can be rated in the WebDriver wait command, and we can also write it in the wait.ignore expect types. We'll go to the expect condition, we will go to the types we have. So what is explicit wait command? With explicit wait command, it is a technique used in software testing and automation to wait for a certain condition to occur before executing next step in the automation script. So unlike implicit wait, which waits for a fixed amount of time, explicit wait waits for a specific condition to be met before proceeding. So for example, let's say we have a web page where a button is enabled only after a certain amount of time has passed. With an explicit wait, we can tell our automation script to wait for the button to be enabled before clicking it. And this ensures that the button is clicked at the appropriate time, regardless of how long it takes for it to become enabled. Explicit wait can be implemented using various methods, such as the WebDriver wait class in Selenium driver, which for a specific condition to be met within a specific timeout period. So the condition can be anything from the presence of a web element to a specific text appearing on the screen. So I think with the implicit wait, so the difference between the implicit wait and the explicit wait is that the implicit wait applies to all elements on your code, like all your code, because it's global. But with explicit wait, you can specify a specific element you want to apply to it. And there is an example which we will go into. So here are some of the expected conditions which you can apply explicit wait. So you can apply to if the title is, if the title contains, if the URL to be, if the URL contains presence of the elements located, the visibility of elements located. So here are some of the expected conditions that you can apply explicit wait with. So we'll go into the advantage and the disadvantage. I don't know if anyone has a question. But
you are done.
Thank you. So with the advantages of explicit wait, it improves test stability. So with explicit wait, we can ensure that our automation script waits for a specific condition to be met before proceeding with the next step. This reduces the likelihood of flaky test or false positive caused by the race condition or synchronization issues. One of the disadvantages also we have is it reduces text execution time. So by using explicit wait, we can avoid hard-coded sleep statement in our automation script, which can be unnecessarily increase the test execution time. So instead, we can wait for the specific condition to be met, which can reduce the overall text execution time. Better error handling. So with explicit wait, it allows us to handle our errors more gracefully. So for example, if a web element is not found within the specific timeout period, we can throw a custom exception with a clear error message instead of a generic timeout error. So I think that's when you can bring in your if-else statement. You can apply that here. And I think we'll go into that. So one of the advantages also is that it has more precise timing. So with explicit weight, we can specify the exact condition we want to wait for, such as the presence of a web element or a specific text appearing on the screen. And this allows us to time our tests more precisely and ensure that they are executing as expected. Let's look at the disadvantages of explicit wait. So slower execution. Explicit waits can slow down the execution of time of automated script because they force the test to wait for a specific condition to be met before proceeding. This can be problematic if the wait time is too long or if there are multiple explicit waits throughout the test. Brittle test. So explicit waits can make tests more brittle because they rely on specific timing or conditions to be met. So if the timing or conditions change, the test may fail, even if the functionality being tested is still working correctly. One of the disadvantages also when it comes to debugging issues. So debugging issues can be more difficult with explicit wait because it may be unclear whether the issue is with the wait or with the application being tested. And this can make it harder to identify and fix issues in the test. One of the disadvantages we also have with explicit wait is difficult in handling dynamic elements. So if the elements being tested are dynamic or change frequently, it can be difficult to determine the correct timing or condition for the wait. And this can lead to unreliable tests or false positives. And the last disadvantage we have here is overuse. So overuse of explicit wait can result in code that is difficult to maintain and modify, as well as tests that are slow to run and prone to failure. It's important to use explicit wait judiciously and only when necessary. So here are some of the disadvantages of explicit wait. I don't know if anyone has got a question.
See it in action.
Yeah. So just to add to it is when we have some exception, then we can use something like this in that particular line of our code. Some of the keys we say that they are having this element not interactable, which Olusegun have been disturbing me about. So you can try to write something like this instead of writing thread or sleep to wait. You can also put something like that. But if you know that it's now difficult, then we can now look for another method to make sure that that element is actually seen and here. But of course, we need to try this first and to say that wait for it to be visible, which I don't want to go too far because I'm learning to come down to basic. Yeah.
Thank you, Abimbola.
Thank you.
So here is an example of how to use it in your code. Later. So it starts from the WebDriver wait. Here's how so from the WebDriver wait, you give the time span. And here in this code, we are telling the code that if it finds the X path, then it can click it. So this is how you can use it in the code. This is how the code snippet looks like. So we will move on to, so here's the difference between implicit and explicit wait, because it might be confusing and some people would think it's probably the same or there's no much difference. But I think there's one major difference between implicit wait and explicit wait. So an implicit wait is set once for the entire WebDriver section and applies to all elements. So I think Hafisa, this will give you a better understanding and regarding the question you asked earlier. So with implicit wait, it's set for once the entire WebDriver section and applies to all elements. It instructs the WebDriver to wait for a certain amount of time before throwing a no such element exception. And this means that if an element is not immediately available, WebDriver will wait for the specified time to allow the element to become available. And on the other hand, an explicit wait is applied. Sorry, is anyone trying to ask a question? Okay. And on the other hand, explicit wait is applied to specific elements and conditions. So it allows the WebDriver to wait for a certain condition to occur before proceeding with the next step. The conditions can be anything from waiting for an element to be visible, to be clickable, or any other custom condition. Explicit wait is implemented using the WebDriver wait class, and it can be customized to wait for a specific time, a specific element, or a combination of both. So we'll move on to fluent wait command. So here's the code snippet for fluent wait command. So what is fluent wait command? Fluent wait is a feature of Selenium. It's a very popular web automation framework that allows you to wait for an element on a web page to become available before interacting with it. So unlike a static wait, which waits for a fixed amount of time before proceeding, a fluent wait allows you to set a maximum amount of time to wait for an element to appear, as well as specify how frequently Selenium should check for the element's availability. So the main advantage of implementing the fluent wait command is setting the polling frequency. So with the fluent wait command, you can set a polling frequency, and this polling frequency checks for the element. So it checks if the element has loaded or not. So it has the attribute polling frequency, and its default value is 500 milliseconds, which means that the driver will check every 500 milliseconds before throwing the error. So if, for instance, you've given your code maybe 30 seconds to, so maybe within the 30 seconds time frame or within the 10 seconds time frame, it should throw an error. Within this time frame, Fluent Assertion will also be checking the code every 500 milliseconds to see that maybe your code, to see if it can find the element before this time. So within every 500 milliseconds or 250 milliseconds, it's going to check for the code. But I think if we go in the advantage, the disadvantage, and we go on, we go to the practical part of it, I think most of you will understand. So overall, a fluent wait can help improve the reliability and stability of your web automation scripts by allowing them to adapt to the dynamic behavior of web pages. So advantages of fluent wait and flexibility. Fluent wait allows you to set the maximum wait time and polling frequency for each specific element, which gives you more control over the wait time and makes code more flexible. We also have another advantage, which is the efficiency. So with fluent wait, it saves times by not waiting for the entire time period you set, and instead wait until the element is found or the maximum time has passed. And this can make your code more efficient and help improve the overall performance of your test suite. Resilience is also one of the advantages. Fluent wait can handle dynamic elements that may appear or disappear at different times during test execution. And by using fluent wait, you can ensure that your tests are resilient to changes in the page structure and the behavior of the web application. we have one last here, which is better error handling. So with Fluent Wait, it provides more detailed error messages when an element is not found or is not clickable. And this can help you quickly identify the cause of the failure and take the necessary corrective action. Let's look at some of the disadvantages of Fluent Wait. So with Fluent Wait, performance overhead. So Fluent Wait is a more complex method of waiting, and it can be resource intensive, especially when used on large or complex web pages. This can result in slower text execution times and increased memory usage. One disadvantage we have here is also potential for timing issues. Although Fluent Wait can be configured to wait for a specific condition to be met, there is still a chance that the timing of the condition may be off. So for example, if the wait time is set too long, the test may wait longer than necessary, potentially leading to false positives. So conversely, if the wait time is set too short, the test may not wait long enough, resulting in false negatives. One other disadvantage is also the code complexity. So with Fluent Wait, it requires additional code to be written. So unlike the implicit wait that you have a simple code to write, and even with the explicit wait that you have a simple kind of code to write. With Fluent Wait, you have a complex, kind of code to write. So we also have to take note when we are writing our Fluent Wait code. So with Fluent Wait, it requires additional code to be written, and it can be difficult to set up and configure properly. And this can be a disadvantage for developers who are new to Selenium or unfamiliar with Fluent Wait. And one last disadvantage we have here is the debugging issues. So with Fluent Wait, it can make it difficult to troubleshoot issues that arise during our test execution, as it adds to an additional layer of complexity of the test code. And this can make it challenging to pinpoint the root cause of the issue that occurred during test execution. So here is an example of it. So just like explained earlier, you have the default WebDriver. So this is how you put it in your code, and you have the time span, and you have the polling interval. So the polling interval is calculated in milliseconds. So with here, you've asked the Fluent Wait to wait for 5 seconds, but within every 250 milliseconds, it's going to check for the code, is going to check for the progress of the code. And if it finds it, it is going to run before the 5 seconds end. So let's sum it up. I mean, now we understand how some web elements could take more time to load than others. And this happens when the web elements are built using Ajax or any front-end framework. And I think I did mention this earlier. With the Ajax is JavaScript and XML. They are used for our web applications and our web elements, and this makes it dynamic sometimes. So they all have different times they load, and that is why we need wait in our code to help us to be able to execute our code and efficiently. So, however, this causes hindrance in our testing, and that we don't get a flawless testing experience. Therefore, wait commands play an important role in Selenium automation testing to resolve as it pauses the test until we get the specific ready testing in the DOM. However, it also increases the time of execution of our test. So here's a summary of wait commands. I don't know if anyone has any question.
Different assertion, what level is it? Is it an implicit or explicit? That's an interview question. And why?
Did you say the fluent?
Sorry, different weight. Sorry, different weight. Is it an implicit weight or is it an explicit weight? How will you kind of categorize it?
So with a fluent weight, I'll categorize it as an explicit weight.
Yeah, correct answer. Okay. All right, let's see it in operation.
Okay, so I tried to get a basic.
Yeah, the basic one is fine. I think it makes sense with the one you share. Yes, this one's.
Oh, you did very well. Yeah, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, exactly. You did well.
Thank you.
I hope some of us is not sleeping, so it will not be fine if some of us
Well
are
done.
sleeping.
You did extremely well, to be honest.
Exactly.
You did well. If I may just ask you a question based on this page now. When you mean set up, text, and tear down, can you just throw more light on that if you can, please?
Sorry, if you could repeat that, I couldn't hear clearly.
This page you're showing now, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm seeing setup, I'm seeing text, and I think there's something down that you put like tear down or something. Or is it my own I'm seeing? Okay, yeah. Yeah, tear down. Can you throw more light on this, please?
Oh, okay. So the setup is basically where I have my my driver, where I initialize my my Chrome driver, and the test is where I have my test, what I want my code to do, and also the tear down is where I want my driver to quit after it runs my test.
Okay, thank you. So you can call it something like a pre-post, kind of pre, maybe the test,
the prerequisite,
preset, yes, on the functionality and the post. Okay.
Nelly.
Yeah.
I think probably because it's using NUnit, that is why I have that test.
Yes, exactly. This is NUnit format.
Yeah, this is not SpecFlow. Sorry, this is not SpecFlow.
Otherwise,
format.
Mr. FlexFlow could have been using before scenario and after scenario.
I know. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so
I wouldn't say that because you are using NUnit or SpecFlow. I think basically the tear down is just for just to clean up temporary files. And you know that sometimes when we run our test, instead of it to our basic test to quit, sometimes it just closes, and sometimes you see your Chrome still opens, and which means that the process is still happening in the background. So your tear up and the tear down or the setup does the cleaning for you in the background. That's why we use it before scenario, to clean up some temporary files for you. I don't think it has to do with NUnit, but it might be that because we have NUnit. Don't forget that we still install the SpecFlow NuGet package. So we still have SpecFlow in our framework. And yeah, and the Visual Studio 2022 kind of demand for this in the hook class. Anytime you want create hook, you will see something like this, that you will still somehow have something to do with the before and after scenario to put something there.
Thank you.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
This is related to NUnit anyway.
Okay.
When you see line 20, is it 20 or 21 that you put test, right? In
21.
Yeah,
21.
SpecFlow, you won't see something like that. You see a different, yeah. So
yeah,
what
set up for SpecFlow.
Yeah, what you have in that square bracket is called annotation in C#. So, and once you have that annotation, the method that follows it will perform that annotation, right? So for that particular purpose. So line 21 is saying that that method on line 23 is a test method for NUnit, right? So for SpecFlow is totally different. SpecFlow is where you would put your step definition, right, with the binding to your feature file.
Binding before and yeah.
Exactly. So that will be the annotation that should be at the top of your own StepFlow framework.
The way that he has used the tear down, and I think sometimes it can be in the hook because yeah, so that it's not confusing to say that we can have it anywhere in our, or can we have it anywhere like this?
You can have it anywhere, actually. You can have it anywhere. The same issue that Rexford mentioned about implicit weight is the same thing, right? If you put it anywhere, right, the issue that you have is you might not know where it's firing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's say you have a tear down and it's closing your browser every time and you don't know where it is, right? So you might be, you might take you a while to kind of know where it is, or let's say it's even like a setup and it's opening several browsers before you start. So, and that's where sometimes it's advisable, right, to put it in your hook folder or in your before, hook folder, hook step or hook folder, whatever it is, so that it's easy to maintain, right? Because no matter what you put it's going to fire anyway. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I think before we I'll just
sorry.
because yes.
Sorry, a quick one, Mr. DJ. Based on the page you just displayed earlier, that probably is going to fire. Agreed. But sometimes if it is not properly well structured in a folder, you discover that by the time you want to run a test, it might even appear as part of the test in the test explorer. I don't know, maybe you understand what I'm saying.
I don't think so, to be honest. So
it's because I've once had such a similar occurrence when I was working on POM. That such a thing happened that while I was trying to carry out a text, I discovered that it was appearing on the test explorer.
So that is if you already make it as a test, right? But if you make it like if it's SpecFlow that you're using, you don't have that anyway. You're going to put in the before scenario, right? But if you're using NUnit, right, it would be, a set. It would. I don't think it will appear anyway. I don't think so.
Yes, I want to support that because anything that will appear in the test explorer must be coming from your feature file, because that specifically brings in, because our feature file is just like the SpecFlow, whereby we kind of put our test there to say that, we want to start our scenario here. So if you have a class, you will not see anything. Let's say we don't have a feature file. If you run if you clean and build, you will not see anything build, and you will not see anything in your test explorer. We can try it, but try and put your feature file, then you see something in your test. So maybe this particular one that you try to put something like this in your test explorer feature file. If you put anything like this in your feature file, of course, it will want to count it like maybe it's a test. I don't know. Maybe that is exactly what you have done.
My Oga, no.
Okay. Maybe you can show us.
Probably later I can show us. Just share a screenshot of. I was working on a project using page object module. So even watching the video, I discovered this is what really happened. So I was able to deduce that it is not necessary that the feature file have to appear on the test explorer.
You are confusing us now.
Yeah, I think let Olusegun, when you are ready, you can show us, right? So
yes.
Yes.
so let's continue anyway on this one so that we can stay on the weight actually. So otherwise, I think we are digressing on this topic.
All right, thank you. So I think someone asked if there is any specific type of package you need to download, NuGet package you need to download. So obviously you need your Selenium support, and you also need your .NET Selenium extra.weight helpers. You need these two, and obviously you need your Selenium driver, Chrome driver. You need those ones to, help you execute your test cases. So just to elaborate on that. So I'm going to run this code. So as explained earlier, I want this code to navigate to Prep Major. And when it navigates to Prep Major, it should click on a login button. So if within 10 seconds, it doesn't find the login button, it's going to throw an exception. But if it finds it within the 10 seconds, it's not going to wait for the 10 seconds. It can click it within 1 second, 2 seconds. So let's just run this code to see how this works. Yeah, so it's clicked it, but it was too fast. I mean, it found it before the 10 seconds. So I'm going to comment this implicit weight out, and I'm going to use the thread.sleep. Let's see how that works as well. Thread dot.
Why not 10,000?
No, that's too much.
Because you use 10 seconds.
Okay, maybe I might. So I don't know if we saw the difference with the implicit weight, it was 8.6 seconds, but with the thread.sleep, it was 11.1 seconds. So I think this pretty much explains the difference between implicit weight and explicit, thread.sleep and implicit weight.
Rexford?
Yes, Nelly.
Sorry, can you comment on that thread.sleep? Let's see if it's going to navigate without.
Oh, do you want me to comment on that?
Comment on it, because I couldn't really picture.
And do you want me to run it now, or do you want me to run it with?
No. Just comment on both and run it.
Okay,
please.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think it was okay. Let's open the test log to see. Well, so it says that the error is showing is that element click intercepted. So the element. So this is why we need a weight in our test. Thanks for pointing that out, Kelly. Nelly. Thanks for pointing that out. So it's failing, and we might be wondering, why is our test failing? Is it from my code? Is it from the element? But it's just the time interception. So the element couldn't find the sign up or the login button on the web page, so it's failed the test. But when we had the thread.sleep, or when we had the implicit weight, it didn't fail. I hope. Is it from element, but it's just the time interception. So it couldn't. And did anyone want to ask a question? Sorry.
Yes, I want to ask
I have a question,
actually.
please.
Okay.
So why are we using both at the same time?
So we are not using both at the same time, because if you remember, I started off with thread.sleep and
Yeah.
I explained its implicit wait. And so first of all, I executed the test with just implicit wait. And after I executed the test with implicit wait, I commented out and I used thread.sleep. And after that, Nelly pointed out I should comment out both. So when I commented out both of them, the test failed. So I'm just giving a scenario of how both works, because with the implicit wait, it took 8.6 seconds, which I can, okay, let's have a look at this and let's see how it works. And this, I think this will explain the advantage and the disadvantage of it. So let's run this code. We are not using both. At the moment, I've commented out thread.sleep, so I'm only using implicit wait. So when we used implicit wait, it took 7.5 seconds to run the code. So let me comment out implicit wait now, and let me use thread.sleep.
Where's first? Can you hold on, please?
Right, okay.
Okay, sorry, I have to comment. In the case of implicit wait, you know, it runs in seconds, but thread.sleep runs in milliseconds. But in this case, you use 10 seconds, and in the thread.sleep, you're using 5,000. And after running at different times, it gives almost the same seconds. So if you really need to see the difference between the two, why not use the thread.sleep as 10,000, which will be the.
Okay,
did you
let
get
me
my
change
point?
it. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Right. Okay. So, all right, let's do this again. So now we are using thread.sleep. Okay. So thread.sleep use 15.9 seconds. Now let's use implicit wait.
Yeah, that's my observation. That one will still be 7 something.
Oh, it's failing. Kills.
No, I don't think you need to debug because it's just
yes.
a build issue. Yeah.
I was just cleaning the code.
Okay, yeah.
Am I running the whole project?
Yeah, you're running the old test.
Oh, I'm running the
and it's actually failing though.
No way. Let me clean it. Sorry about this. Let me clean it and build it again.
You need to kill all your Chrome running in the background because you can still see the exe, even though it's building for you. By the time you check your task manager, you will see that you have a lot there.
I don't know why it's failing. Line 23, implicit weight 7. Abimbola, are you gonna help me?
Yeah, it's because of the element. You just need to increase the weight. And yeah.
Just put it as 60.
Exactly. So it's not like it's you've done the worst thing. No, sometimes it happens that it's not taking 10 seconds. You just need to increase it, then it passes.
Yeah. Put 60 there.
Okay, let me post. Oh.
Sometimes it doesn't work. That's it. Increase it again.
Did you save after increasing it?
Say that again, sorry.
Did you save after increasing?
Yeah.
When it's test in place, it will always save.
Okay, so for some reason, it's the meeting to
Yeah, you just need to increase the weight because you put 20 seconds. 20 seconds might not be enough. So yeah.
Yeah, I put
so this is where the old the old thread slip will not fail you, right?
Exactly.
You put the thread slip there, and you found that the issue is weight. Do you get it now? Once you use the thread slip to find that, oh, the issue is weight because my code is now working with the thread slip, then you would now try to remove it, right, and put another weight there. But it's a good way to for you to find out if the problem is weight, right? So if you enable that thread slip and see if it will pass. If it does pass, then you technically confirm that it's a weighting issue, right?
Oh, I just have 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so for some reason, I think it's a weighting issue, just like G mentioned.
All right. So then you've kind of found one of the issues with the implicit weight, right? Because like I said, it's not reliable, right? Sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't work. That's where I would be an advocate for explicit weight, like fluent weight, actually. And in some cases, even at work, what I do with fluent weight, to be honest, you'll be amazed. I even sometimes put it in a loop as well. Because if you are working with some website that's so flaky, you cannot even put your money on it. So after you've done the explicit weight, right, with fluent weight, you will also kind of say you should try like 3 times with a loop, right? So, but you would kind of break out once that particular condition is met, and you just break out. So, okay, all right. So I think this is good. So, any question, anyone? But you've kind of been able to find the issue now, anyway.
Yeah.
You've just gone advanced, sir. You said loop. And I know that if I'm the one that said that to you, because people want to ask me what that loop is, and it's kind of a bit advanced.
You've had to advance now. Loop and pipeline.
No, pipeline is not advanced.
Just Google it, okay.
Okay. Well, I'll go to court.
Should Rexford share this with everyone? Maybe push it to the repository, sir.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. If you, yeah, please, if you can add it to the repository, that would be good. But this is good. Well done. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, well done, Rexford. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any question for Rexford, guys? Any question?
So can we, sir, it's just a suggestion. Can somebody also do exception?
Yeah, I think
because
I
it
gave
goes
that to
together.
someone. I gave that to someone. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, I gave that
okay.
to someone. Yeah. So, and who was that? Was it Samson? Oh, yeah.
Oh, Samson. Oh, yeah. Samson also have a session. Samson, you don't want to say anything, Abby. Ah, okay. Oh.
He asked me I should not use the thread or slip. I should use the implicit weights.
No, we are talking about exceptions.
Assertions. I gave someone an assertion.
Yes, you gave Olaolu assertions.
Allow.
You see, these people are hiding.
No,
Mm.
no,
Hey.
but the assertion is a little bit more of me writing codes and all those things. So it's a bit cumbersome, but I said I was going to talk to you about it. But I did something. But looking at Rexford's job, it puts me off my feet.
Exactly. So you can see he came prepared. I don't think in the history of demo, Rexford kind of beat everybody, even me myself, because he looks like he explained it and he came prepared. Yeah, well done.
Totally agree.
Thank you.
I think now that Olaolu is afraid, actually, after that, so what can I do? So let's do it on Saturday, okay? That'll give you some time to warm up.
We have coronation.
Okay,
sir.
no, but
That coronation.
There is spring coronation.
Okay, because Abibola she's a princess. The training is in the evening after your coronation in the afternoon. Okay.
No, no. Let's have it normal time.
No. We agree. We agree that we're going to be having evening now, isn't it?
Oh, well.
Or did we not? I think
no,
we did.
No, sir.
Yes,
I think
No.
this time is the best for me, if not because of
evening.
intense. I think
People
this
are
is the best
looking
time for
at
me.
their own convenient time.
I've
But I think
cancelled
it
my
was
own
only
job.
in the afternoon, sir. I think the reason for evening was because of Tosin last week.
Yeah,
He normally is after the advance.
No, Abimbola, he said we should decide, and we all said yes, evening. That will.
No, let's consider the person that said he also canceled his work just to
I
fit
just
in
canceled
that
my
time.
shift because of it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
definitely, some people do cancel their shift on Saturdays because of it too. I think so.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Nelly.
That's the
No,
short
no.
Stop
For the
working
new,
because I
for the
normally
new,
work
for the
Saturdays.
new QAs, we need to take their response. So because,
Please.
like Mr. Deji have said, the focus is on them.
Yes,
All
thank you.
graduates, you are
All the old
graduates.
schools. Yes. Okay.
No. Hold on. Because we had this meeting and we right, and I asked everyone to raise their hand up. Olamide, were you there at that particular meeting?
No, I missed the last two meetings because I was at work. I just rearranged my rota, all because of this advance. I've missed the last two, and it's affecting me at the moment. I'm still trying to catch up with some things. I've just successfully changed my rota this week.
So the question
I've been having issues with rota.
Moving forward, what will your rota be like? Will you have to be canceling every Saturday, or is now?
Yes, it's now fixed to cancel to be available every morning on Saturday.
Yeah, but this one we are saying evening.
We are still going to do the morning one, right? It's still there. It's just that we want to do another extra one in the evening. The morning one will still be done, right? Because that is even, for the new guy, like I said, money on Saturday is very, very important. even next Saturday is very, very important, actually, because that's where we're going to actually talk about the project that you're going to work on. The money is still there, right? It's
An
only that
interview.
after, yeah, exactly, and the interview and everything. It's only that we might not use the from, is it 2 to 4 that we normally do, right? We might not use that, or we can still use it, but because we see how
What about
this,
the new program?
yeah, it's starting from next week anyway. So,
Yeah,
but
because you
yeah,
want
I
to
think,
separate
yeah,
it from the
yeah,
advance.
exactly. I think let's meet on Saturday, right? 2 to 4. And let's also see if you can do later in the evening, because I want to kind of, yeah, get this done and dusted as well, so that we get this covered, so that the new guys have got confidence to be able to kind of body the guys that are coming to the internship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one takes longer time and more relaxed for me. On Saturday, sometimes it can have a little time to go out